Hi, friends, and welcome back to Beyond the Screen, the Family Connection podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Samantha Hayes, educator, parent, and founder of Beyond the Screen Families. And if you listened last week, we talked about how to cultivate curiosity at home. I gave you some doable, realistic tips on things you could start today or last week, actually, when you listened, right? So now we're going to take it a little bit further and we're going to talk about something that might feel intimidating to a lot of parents. And that's the idea of STEAM. And if you're like, STEAM, like the stuff that comes out of the tea kettle? No, I mean science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, which we have acronymed as STEAM. And if you're like most families I work with, when you hear STEAM, you might think, I don't have time for that. I don't have the materials for that. I'm not a science person. I mean, I am, but maybe that's what you're thinking. I'm not a science person. STEAM isn't something you add. It's not something extra. I just have to put it out there. It's something that already exists inside of play. It's already there. We're just going to talk about and break down how to cultivate it, how to really harness it, and I'm going to give you simple, screen-free STEAM activities that feel like play because, yes, you guessed it, they are. If you've watched any of the reels where you see with the toddler STEAM classes that I host, you'll notice a lot of times it looks like kids playing. And if you're a parent who's brought your child, a lot of times it looks like kids playing because they are. But we're also deeply engrossed in STEAM contest content and STEAM understandings through that play. STEAM isn't worksheets. It's also not necessarily complicated experiments. It's not something that requires a degree for you to do. So then what is STEAM? It's asking questions. It's testing ideas. It's building, creating, exploring. When they mix colors and notice changes, that's science and art. When a child builds a tower and it falls, that's engineering. When they sort, count, or measure, that's math. And if you haven't listened to the math episode 2 episodes ago, you need to go listen to it now. The problem is we have separated learning from play. And when that happens, kids disengage. But when learning feels like play, when learning is play, kids naturally lean in. So let's talk about why real learning looks like play. Because real learning, the hard learning, isn't always going to look impressive. It's not going to look like some big ta-da. It looks like trial and error, repetition, frustration, trying again and again. I just taught a maker's class yesterday to a group of kindergarten and first graders. They were making a bird's nest. I got them all started and then I talked to them about how they needed to do the rest of it. They were frustrated for the most part. Frustrated, completely frustrated. But then when they calmed down and we talked about how the messiness is good and what do real bird's nests look like, and we kept re-emphasizing that there's no right way, they started to really embrace it. They tried again. They continued to like stick things in and be like, okay, that's not right. We had trial error happening and critical thinking. Real learning is messy. It's unfinished often, and it might look slow. And that's exactly where real growth happens. That's why if you've attended a toddler enrichment, you'll see that we might do several things, but we're repeating the concepts over and over again, that I'm communicating the same words over and over again. We just did this with sound, and I continue to say the same types of things over and over again because that's where real learning happens. But it doesn't have to be a formal lesson. So let's talk about a few STEAM activities that feel like play because they are. Number one, the Build and Test Challenge. And if you have been following for any time, you know that I am a huge build fan. Building is one of the most powerful things that we can allow our kids to engage in. If you give your child a simple prompt, like, can you build something that stands on its own? Maybe then you grab some materials. You grab them blocks, magnetic tiles, cardboard cups, recyclables, it doesn't really matter. You have materials for them and you say, can you build something that stands on its own? The key isn't in the materials. You can use anything, and maybe it's just cotton balls. It's the process. It's the fact that kids will build, test something out, adjust it, and try again. When we see those kids building, knocking it over, rebuilding, that's part of the whole engineering design process. Those kids are doing STEAM. These kinds of processes build engineering thinking and resilience. Number two, the sink or float experiment. And I love this one for kids of all ages. I love it, and it's one you can come back to time and time again. All you need to do is fill a bowl or a tub with water, or if you have a swimming pool, use the swimming pool. Ask just this one question. Do you think this will sink or float with the materials you've gathered? Let them test and try it out. There's no pressure. There's no right answer. This builds prediction skills, observation, and early scientific thinking. One of my favorite things to ask if it will sink or float is a watermelon. Give kids that, and then the that happens when they realize what's happening with the watermelon. And then there's this discussion of why is that happening? It's so heavy. And that discussion is powerful. Another favorite of mine is the color mixing lab. Using paint, food coloring, or even just markers and water. We've even done it with crayons at a restaurant. It lets kids experiment. What happens when we mix colors? Can we make a new shade? This blends the science and the art in a way that feels creative, not structured, and they're starting to understand primary versus secondary colors and all the things that that means. Okay, number 4 is the DIY marble run. If you have cardboard tubes like toilet paper, paper towel rolls, books, boxes, anything where they can construct and deconstruct, and this is going to be amazing. Here's the challenge. Can you build a path for a marble? That's the challenge. Kids will naturally test angles, they'll test speed, they change structures, all because they're trying to get their marble. And if they produce something really quickly, you can say, I wonder if you could make it go faster, or could you make it longer? Is there something else you could do with it? Just put the work back on the kids. That's physics integrated into play. And the last idea that I'm going to give you today is the measurement in real life challenge. So instead of formal math, as you know, when we talked about this 2 weeks ago, bring it into real life. It is everywhere. We are all mathematically, humanly math people because it's everywhere. So examples, measuring ingredients while cooking, comparing different sizes of things, or estimating distances. So you might ask things like, one is bigger? How many do you think we need? Math becomes a part of life, not something separate. So, why does this matter for screen balance? When kids are engaged in hands on, meaningful play, screens become less appealing. We talk about this all the time. Screens become less appealing because screens provide less. If screens only provide entertainment, which is traditionally what they do, yes, there's that whole discussion on dopamine, but screens provide entertainment. Play provides engagement, ownership, creativity, confidence, thinking, and the list goes on and on. When kids are creating instead of consuming, everything shifts. And this is exactly why we created the Wonder Box. The Wonder Box takes these kinds of STEAM-based, curiosity-driven experiences and makes them easy and accessible at home. There's no prep. There's no overwhelm, just open-ended invitations that feel like play because they are. It gives your child a starting point and then lets their imagination take over. If you want to make more of these moments happen naturally, the Wonder Box is a simple, easy way to do it. You can get the link to the Wonder Box in the show notes and go grab yours today. So I just want to leave you with this. If it feels like play, you're doing it right. Because play is where learning sticks. When we stop separating learning from fun, kids don't just learn more, they also enjoy it more. And that's what keeps them coming back without needing any screen device around them. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Here's to creating more moments that stick. Bye, friends.